Hello, and welcome to Season 4 of the Soundstage Audiophile Podcast. For the past few years, host Jorden Guth has been learning about the who, the what, and the when of hi-fi from the pioneers who made our hobby what it is today, as well as the modern innovators who are constantly striving to push performance to new levels. That's not going to change, but this year he'll also be learning about the other two W's, where your favorite gear is made these days, and why. So with that out of the way, let's see who Jorden is chatting with this time around.
Hello and welcome to the Soundstage Audiophile Podcast. Today we have Bill Voss, the Business Development Manager for Technics in North America with us to talk about how Technics has evolved over the last 60 years. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, Jorden. Thank you for having me on the show today. It's great to be here, great to see you, and great to talk with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And Technics is like just such a well-known brand, and there's a lot to talk about. But before we even get into that, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you end up to where you are now? How did you end up in the hi-fi hobby, working with Panasonic and then Technics and all that? Was this something that you always dreamed about? Were you always into hi-fi? Give me a little bit of an origin story here.
Well, it's quite a story to tell, Jorden, truthfully, because it's like a 50-year story, to be honest with you. So, I think I had a early appreciation for music, when at a young age, because my sister was 10 years older than me. So I was hearing the Beatles when I was like 5 years old, and just hearing top 40 radio running all the time as a teenager. She was listening to everything. I think she saw the Beatles in 1964 at Shea Stadium. She was quite a hip teenager, and she was listening to everything. Later on in life, she got married, and I was about 10 years old when she got married, and we were just getting introduced to the Brazilian wave of jazz and, Frank Sinatra and Joe Beam. And I had quite a real nice appreciation of a wide range of music at a young age. So I had always been tuned into to music that way. My neighbors had a garage band as we grew up. My buddies, had some older brothers, and they played all the great classic rock tunes. We'd sit there and just watch them play in the garage, and we'd record from time to time and, play air guitar and all that. I never became a musician, but I'm a closet drummer, and
oh, nice.
I love to play along with headphones and listen. I never really had a chance to play live, to be honest with you, but one day maybe I'll have that chance. So just a very early, appreciation for all kinds of music, and just enjoying music and equipment. And my brother-in-law was a great direction for me to get involved with equipment, and he was in the electronics business. He got me a nice some better stereo equipment than I had available at the time, and little by little, I really got to enjoy everything. And my first job was working for a catalog showroom selling electronics in the catalog show. I was on a part-time work-study program in high school, and that led me to hang out at the local hi-fi stores, and I eventually worked for a real nice hi-fi shop, and eventually managed the store, and we were a Panasonic Technics dealer at that time. And this is when I'm 15 and a half, 16 years old. I was managing the store, I think, when I was 18. The next couple of years after that, being such a great Technics Panasonic dealer, I was hired by Panasonic, actually, to work for them. And then since 1982, I've been with Panasonic. It's
Whoa.
So since 75, I think I may have sold my first Technics turntable in 1975. It's a long time ago, and it's hard to think back on all that. I really wrapped it up very quickly for you, but so many things happened in and along the way. There were other stores that I worked for, other companies that I worked for, but generally speaking, my career has been with Panasonic through every imaginable, wave and product introductions. Came on at the tail end of VHS. So anything that's happened since VHS, I've been involved with in one way or another, whether it's, digital CD, the launch of CD, DVD, Blu-ray, DVD audio, digital recording onto VHS tape, L cassette. MD, you name it, DCC, all the different versions and things from techniques and technology from Panasonic over the years, plasma TV with the Lumix brand. So I've been involved with just about every category. Just a great business. It's a great industry, and it's a hobby. It's always been a hobby. I've always had hi-fi gear.
That's awesome. And I'm thinking about this. So Techniques is just over 60 years old. So you've been there for almost the entire time. Like Techniques was a young company when you were you started selling them and interacting with them.
Yeah, well, the claim to fame with Techniques, granted, we were born in 1965, the Techniques brand, and it has always been a part of Panasonic. A lot of people wonder.
How's that connection made?
Yeah, we often get confused sometimes with Pioneer, but Panasonic has always been the parent company of Techniques, and we were a division born in 1965. I say we, but Techniques was born in 1965 to. They were just a group of fanatical engineers that absolutely appreciated everything that they can contribute to the sound and quality and build of hi-fi equipment within the Panasonic arrangements and design and technology that they had the backing for to develop these type of products. They were always known for using the very highest quality parts and build, and just an excellent foundation to build so many interesting new and technically firsts in the industry. One of them, most importantly, that people will know us for is the invention of direct drive for turntables. And that was 1970. So that at the time, if you think about what was happening in the world, you're a bit young, so I don't think you may remember this, but at that time, we could listen to the radio, we could listen to records. They didn't have CDs, they didn't have streaming, of course. We didn't have personal computers. I mean, people had a good stereo and they had a TV and they listen to the radio. And, the radio stations are spinning vinyl 24/7, and they had 2 turntables, maybe 3 turntables, and they're at that time they were rim drive or idler drive or belt drive, and they required servicing. And when you took a turntable out of the assembly and had to repair it or upgrade it or maintain it, you were down a turntable, and it slowed down your workflow. And when Techniques introduced direct drive, it was brought into these studios as a finished product, of course, and it was brought into the studios and very well received because it could just be dropped into a console. They had, usually these radio stations had consoles where the tone arms and cartridges and so on were built into the console. They just would change the drive system out when it needed maintenance. And that's what this was designed for. It was not a turntable system, it was just a drive system. And they would drop it in, and they never turned them back again. It just ran, that never had to be pulled for maintenance. And the concept of direct drive was very well embraced there. And it later became, a staple of the industry. And in 1972, it was brought out as an SL1200, which is a famous model. And it gets even more interesting as the story goes on, because in 72, it was a complete turntable system with a tone arm. And that's the first time you saw the strobe etchings on one of our turntables, and variable pitch control with a dust cover and arm, interchangeable head shells. It was just the first iteration of a 1200. And that's the basis of the Techniques claim to fame in the world that most people know. There's a lot of firsts in terms of amplification and preamplification, class AA amplification and headphone amplification, battery operated preamps, and all kinds of incredible introductions to class A amplification and these monstrous amplifiers that had these, 6-inch power meters, just amazing to look at and behold. I think I showed you one last time we were on the call, in my listening room. So, it's very exciting to look back on the history of Techniques, but most people know us for that story behind the turntables. And then SL1200 really, set the table and the pace for so many things, turntablism, DJism, hip hop, all kinds of potential came from that original SL1200, which later became an SL1200 Mark II, which is the iconic look that you see in our new models that we pay homage to that SL1200 Mark II. So it's quite a story. I mean, there's so many iterations of it since 1972, and 79 was the classic year that SL1200 Mark II came out, and a lot of things were happening at that time in the world. So it was very apropos and just legendary. Since then, the legend is we've sold, I don't know, 3 to 4 million turntables in that SL1200, and that was back then. And so that's kind of our
claim to fame and how things started.
I'd have to say that's what most people remember. So many different products. I mean, we've made the funny thing, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but the first product Technics introduced was not a turntable. It
wasn't electronics either, was it?
Well, it was. It was a two-way loudspeaker.
Okay.
Loudspeaker. At the time, that was becoming very popular and necessary for people that enjoy, great sound in a small space. And, being that it was designed and made for a Japanese audience initially, that was ideal. It was just a, I don't know, like a 16-inch tall, say, I've never seen one in real life, to be honest with you, but it was our very first introduction. It's a very beautiful product. I hope I do get to see one or hear one day, but that was our first product, was a loudspeaker.
And was there electronics with it as well? Because Technics, when I think of Technics, I think of like my dad had a Technics preamp back in the day. So was there electronics on that initial kind of birth of the company, or was it only that loudspeaker to start things off?
Well, that was 1965, and I certainly wasn't involved at that time, but there is a timeline on our website that people can look at, and you can read about all of our history. But I do believe it was a loudspeaker was the first introduction. I would imagine very shortly after that, there were amplifiers and preamplifiers, and we actually had a very interesting turntable back then as well. It was a belt-driven turntable with a linear tracking tone arm. And that's also noted somewhere on one of our websites. So they've just been deeply involved in it and the products, and ever since that first launch. But I mention that just because most people, as I say, they think of us for our turntables, but it was a loudspeaker. And since then, Panasonic and Technics was at one time one of the largest manufacturers of drivers, of speakers themselves being used in headphones and radios. And think about all the portable radios that Panasonic has made over the, I don't know, they're a 105-year-old company, I think, or older. So, they sold a lot of speakers. So we were definitely one of the largest manufacturers of loudspeakers themselves, just the raw drivers themselves. So, yeah, there's just an incredible manufacturing capability behind it all. To have Panasonic as the parent company and always providing the leadership and the money, the design and research and design capabilities and factories to build all this stuff.
So I guess what I'm kind of curious about is with the initial idea of Techniques, it was around like enhancing audio, right? It was all about hi-fi. So, I mean, Panasonic still makes speakers and they still make other products that seemingly compete, or do they complement? Like, where is the distinction, or has there been a distinction over the years between what Panasonic would make and put to market in those areas versus what Technics would make?
Well, you have to think about how Panasonic fits into the picture, right? Panasonic has certainly made very high quality audio systems, and at one time we were globally known, a number of different brands. It was the Matsushita brand. It was the Panasonic brand. It was Quasar. It was Motorola. I'm not sure about Quasar and Motorola, but it was Quasar at a time. And it was Ramsa, and there was Technics. So we had a number of different brands, and now it's all called Panasonic. I think that was, I forget the year we consolidated everything into Panasonic, and Technics was reborn in 2014. So there's a lot of different brands out there over the years, but they've all kind of had their specialty. The Ramsa brand was, and still lives today, I think, is more of a sound reinforcement, that lives in the pro audio world. They do stadiums and, they do the large screen. Panasonic does the large screen projectors at all these, large coliseums and events and race courses and you name it, Indy 500 type places. So Panasonic is involved. It's just the audio side on Panasonic, had been pretty much focused through Techniques. So when you see our very best efforts, it's through the Techniques brand, But Panasonic had and still does make many contributions that do equate to high quality sound. And just take our UB820 Blu-ray player or the Panasonic UB9000 Blu-ray player, just extreme high quality performance and digital capabilities, the DAC streaming capabilities, the design and build quality of those would certainly adapt into a Techniques product line if it were able to, but we separate it for different reasons. So yeah, the Panasonic, and we still make, headphones. We still make 2-channel stereo shelf systems, Bluetooth speakers and things like that. It's just more for a mainstream audience, and Techniques paves the way for the higher end audio division.
And if I remember correctly, so Techniques actually used to make CD players and all that stuff, but they were also one of the pioneers with was it SACDs or was it DVD audio? It was one of those, and I don't remember quite which one.
Yeah, that's probably just when you started tuning into the scene, just based on your age. But that was 2000, and I was on the team that launched the DVD audio, and SACD was kind of a competitor. The idea was to put high resolution audio on a disc, and the benefit was also that you can do multi-channel audio as well because the disc had so much bandwidth. So Techniques was in the DVD audio camp and others were in the SACD camp. Yeah. A long journey, interesting. DVD audio is very interesting. I still have a shelf full of DVD audio discs and SACDs myself, and still have a number of players around that I still use my original Techniques SVDA10 DVD audio player. It's an incredible machine. If you ever get a chance to look at that online, gorgeous, beautiful transport, and works beautifully. And nowadays, we actually, our new model player, SLG 700 or SLG 700 M2, actually play SACDs and not DVD audio.
Oh.
Yeah, one of the complications, I think, with DVD audio is you really needed a television screen.
Oh, interesting. Navigate the menus and go through the entire process.
Well, that they probably could have found a way around that, but there was content on those discs where that was not on the SACDs. SACD, to my knowledge, was all just sound, no images. So DVD audio, because DVD, digital video disc, had the capability of putting, there's lyrics. There were all kinds of pictures and images that you would normally not have seen. Those are available while the music was playing. You could read the lyrics, you could see pictures of the band, you could see album covers. So all that required a screen, and you could operate it without a TV, but it was cumbersome. So I think that's unfortunately the demise. But nowadays it lives in a new form. The digital content is on Blu-ray disc, so it's all out there. You can, if you want to search it all, it's all there. It's very exciting to hear some of our favorite music divided into 5.1 channels. It's a very interesting kind of sound quality and capability to enjoy. I've always enjoyed it, and you can just hear more of the music in a different way. It's just interesting.
Yeah, it's a different experience for sure. So we're getting all the way up to the 2000s. The early 2000s, we got the introduction of the iPod. We start seeing MP3s explode. We start seeing digital becoming more of a thing. CDs are still quite popular. I feel like vinyl was kind of going, not away per se, but it was taking a back seat to some of these other formats. So what happened around that time with Techniques?
Well, Techniques was always enjoying, the funny thing about our company is that, we mentioned the success of the SL1200 and all the different iterations of it over the years, and the inclusion of it being a tool of the trade for professional DJs. And so Techniques always lived in like a pro DJ, professional kind of area. And we also lived in the hi-fi business. And all those years from 65, 75, 85, 95, they were making a full line of audio components from CD players to receivers, multi-channel receivers, home theater receivers, CD changers. We had some very interesting CD products, and in between all that, you had the L cassette, you had MD, you had DCC, you had double cassette decks, and all kinds of technology came through there. What is the best? And everything became digitized and digital, and what remains are CDs and streaming and, discs and so on. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that Technics had always been around as a brand and very popular as a brand. And in the 2000s, vinyl had become, less important to most people. And, the introduction of other formats and digital formats and capability of, I think streaming became really popular closer to like 2010 and beyond. I forget the exact dates. I can tell you in what led up to, Techniques turntables were always popular and always made. We always had different versions of it available. I think we ended up with the SL 1200 Mark VI was the last Pro DJ iteration that we had, which probably sold up until like 2010, and whatever was around in the US anyway, was still available. You could still buy a lot of the older SL 1200s, new old stock, even in 2015, and even now you might be able to find some. However, we kind of the popularity of turntables in general kind of faded a bit with all the streaming and things, and Techniques kind of, we stopped at the SL 1200 Mark VI. There's no official story of why, the brand didn't get sold. We didn't go away. We were just kind of regrouping. And if you think about how we came back to market in 2014, being introduced at the IFA show in Europe in Berlin, the product line came back as a full luxury product line with high-resolution digital amplifiers. Really, some of this being done for the first time, high-resolution loudspeakers, streaming capabilities, app control. This is all in 2014. And being able to do things wirelessly and with direct stream digital and things like that. And when we introduced that at CES in 2015, it was a super product line, incredible product line with 2 systems and all digital, no turntables. And people would come and visit us at our showroom and CES, and they say, Bill, it's great to see the brand back. Congratulations. We're so happy to see Techniques back. But where's the turntable? And in 2015, we said, well, we kind of did that. We've been there. We did that. And it's a digital age. And really, that was kind of the message. There was no plan at that time, really publicly, to talk about a turntable. And everyone was begging to please come back with an SL 1200 turntable. Truthfully, I think it was... and again, I can't be sure of these numbers, but I was told...
We're not holding you to specific dates.
Yeah, like 20,000 petitions were sent via social networking to our director of Techniques and just said, please bring back the SL 1200 turntable, So it was hard to avoid that. And, we realized there's still quite a demand for vinyl. And in that time, I think people just learned that vinyl is still incredible, and people just got behind it again, and slowly it became more and more popular, and is as popular as ever now that you can enjoy, especially since COVID, so many people diving back into their hobbies and things. It became very, very popular. So I guess where I'm going with that was that we knew we were going to have a turntable, and I saw some prototypes, truthfully, but it was not a public statement. But the next year, we came back to CES in 2016 with a turntable. So only company like Techniques, with a parent company of Panasonic, could provide that, foundation to come up with that kind of design. And we designed it to look like that SL 1200 Mark II from 1979 to pay homage to that, just legendary turntable. So when you see it, the new turntables look almost exactly like the old turntables when you at a glance. When you start to handle and use them, there's so many differences. Virtually everything has been changed on these. So many things go into the formula. So that's kind of what happened there. If people wondered, what happened to Techniques, but we never went away. We're just back in a new focus, and we're more of a luxury type high-end audio company now. We don't make a low price receiver. We don't make home theater gear. We have all 2-channel direction, all digital amplification, high-resolution loudspeakers. We have some new active loudspeakers. We have so many award-winning products in the product line now. The line has grown from those 2 systems in 2015 to, gee whiz, I think we've probably got close to 30 different models now. We're very, very big into headphones and earbuds with, the way everyone is just traveling and integrating with their phones and wanting to listen to everything and speak and contact and communicate. The earbuds are just an incredible asset that we have to introduce people to the Technics brand in a much lower cost point of entry, and there's quite an appreciation for our earbuds, and so we have a really wide audience now, and it's just an interesting path that Technics has taken in direction, and again, all digital technology. As much as we talk about our turntables, Jordan, the backbone is digital technology in these turntables. Our flagship model can actually receive a firmware update.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Speed drive. So, you can put a thumb drive in there and the turntable can be firmware updated, but we don't know what that's for, but it's always been in that 1200G model. So it's very interesting. And underneath the hood of all these are the coreless direct drive motors that have the digital control mechanism. It's actually was called the third generation of Technics direct drive. And now we're actually into the fourth generation of Technics direct drive called Delta Sigma drive system. So there's all kinds of improvements still being made on something you say, how could you make that better? And our engineers keep finding ways to do that. So it's quite exciting whenever we get a new product, it's like, all right, let me drop everything and play with this and enjoy it. And, after listening to all this stuff, all these years, I can really appreciate the differences and see why, and, just worth every bit of attention. So it's been a fun ride in that respect.
Now, do you find, and this is kind of curious to me because through the Soundstage Network, we started creating a video series called Why Vinyl, where we explore how vinyl has just completely had a resurgence in the last few years. Now, from the Technique side, it sounds like vinyl never really went away. People were asking for you guys to make players again and all this. But have you noticed or have you seen a vinyl spike over the last maybe 10-ish years, or maybe even less, maybe 5? And has that, do you see that directly related to the turntables because Techniques is so known for that?
Well, I can tell you personally, my own collection, I had, back in the day, I had collected probably 600 records on my own, just over the years. And that was my collection. And I wasn't buying as much vinyl as once CDs came out. Truthfully, I probably have 6,000 CDs, so I've got plenty of CDs. I did enjoy the digital content. I enjoyed the flexibility of CDs. I enjoyed the programmability. I've enjoyed the dynamic range and the signal to noise and all the benefits that you can get. A lot of people forget the CDs do have a lot of benefits, and as vinyl has its own benefits, and I still love to hear a record more than I like to hear a digital file from time to time, but it varies. You can't argue with the quality of digital. It can be exceptional. So I didn't buy as many albums, but since Techniques came back in 2014, and I was involved, I should say immersed so much in this launching of this rebranding of it, and I probably collected 1,000 more records. So, wow. So many so that I don't know what I'm going to do with them all, really. I have to have some storage space, but it's overwhelming. And I kind of have a way of collecting. I think there's a lot of different ways people get into vinyl. This could be a show just to talk about the collecting vinyl and how we all enjoy it and collect it and listen, and how we, take care of it, how we store it, how we clean it, how we all, you can have an episode for each one of these things. But generally speaking, I do a lot of, I try to buy, small collections, or, try to go for quantity for the exploration's sake. And just to see what sounds great, what was a really incredible sounding record that people never heard before. And I find a lot of new music that I would normally not have found otherwise. And so it's a funny thing. If I add up all the records and you put a value of $5 a record. I spent $5,000, let's say, on I could have spent $5,000 on all brand new vinyl from some of our the best suppliers, Mobile Fidelity and Acoustic Sounds and all that. But I like the exploration part of it and just discovering some incredible piece of vinyl. And our branding with the new product line is Rediscover Music, and I can't stress that enough. That's what I've been doing, and just going back and finding all these old recordings or recording that I'd never heard of. I'm an old guy, and so I remember a lot of music from the 60s, and I appreciate stuff from the 50s, and especially jazz, and a lot of the vocalists, male and female vocalists. There's some just incredible recordings from Capitol Records and Columbia and RCA, and just to go back and discover these, whether they're mono or stereo, and just put it on a Technics turntable and just spin. It's just so exciting to hear what's in those grooves, and it's a discovery for me. I just love to discover new things, and I've made a couple of suggestions over the years, and one of the suggestions in particular got remastered. So yeah, I do find some things from time to time. So it's been fun for me in that sense. So that's kind of a broad explanation. I didn't mean to get so long-winded there for you, but
well, I think it's good to kind of like take it back to the personal element of things. And when I think about it, so you kind of touched on a lot of the stuff that anybody that we talk to kind of iterates. It's this personal connection to music. It's a way of discovering music that's not just kind of clicking buttons on a screen that's an inanimate object. You actually have a tactile experience. Like I'm presuming you go to a record store and you actually flip through different options, and you might get influenced by the artwork, or it could just be a name that you remember, or any of these different things. And then the entire process is a physical experience. So I do find it interesting that kind of you have that enthusiasm, even when there's so much kind of technology surrounding you. You have the ability to choose anything, right? Like, presumably you could listen to everything off of a hard drive nowadays, but there's still that kind of that pull to the physical medium that gets you back to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It seems there's no challenge to, open up Qobuz and click on a track, and it's in 5 seconds you're there. It's a funny transition. They say be careful what you wish for. I think I mentioned I have like 6,000 CDs. Well, I do. I still have them, and I think I archived them onto my laptop, and then I put them on a network attached storage, but I only got about halfway through when streaming became very popular. And I said, it's going to take me 5 minutes to rip this into the computer and get it. Then I got to copy it onto the network attached storage. And well, in 5 seconds I could be listening. So, I was paying the $20 a month or whatever it was when it first started, $30 a month. And I still have all the CDs and often prefer to listen to those CDs rather than streaming, which is another story. But for the sake of knowing exactly what I'm listening to and where it came from, I know that I paid for that disc, probably paid $20 for, in some cases, $25 back when I began collecting. I was collecting, remember, I was selling the Technics CD players, and it was like 1980, 82, 83, 84, and I was collecting CDs like mad. I was spending a fortune on CDs. So, yeah, I mean, it's... Yes, you're right. I can play a CD. I can play an SACD. I can stream a file. I can play all this. I've got cassettes. I've got, I've even got some 8-tracks somewhere and reel-to-reel. So it's all available. But, the act of streaming is just so, it's numbing in a way. I love the service. I love the capability. But that tactile influence that you recommend, you mentioned earlier, it's just not the same. When you drop the needle on a record and you can tell just when it hits the very first groove that it's going to sound incredible. And that's what you get, and you have so much flexibility of cartridges. And if I need a mono cartridge and a mono stylus to accommodate one of those older records, with the Technics gear, you can easily adjust and change head shells and cartridges. With the Technics integrated amplifier, the digital processing on the phono stage allows me to change the EQ curves. So if I have a Columbia EQ curve or an RCA EQ curve or a London curve, and I want to hear what those original old records sound like, I just push a button and it's done. So all kinds of interesting things that in the pursuit of enjoyment of vinyl with Techniques is we've taken it very deep into what the enjoyment that you can have with very, very simple way of enjoying it. There's not a lot of fiddling involved. It's, once you set everything up, it's just very easy to enjoy everything. So, yeah.
That's cool. I'm just kind of thinking about this. So we're a little bit past a decade since the rebirth of Techniques. I can't imagine Techniques is going anywhere anymore, or that it needs another rebirth or anything like that. But what do you see as kind of the future? Maybe not like specifics on products or anything like that, but like, do you see the future as kind of leaning more towards that tactile experience of things? Do you see the experience of hi-fi still being relevant today, or is that something that is kind of going more towards a niche? Or is it still going to be kind of expanding with people getting more into this tactile experience and this kind of ritual of listening to vinyl?
Well, now that's a very interesting question. And some of the people that I speak with and some that are in the business that still work in retail or whatever, and some say that, it's kind of reached its limits of what can be enjoyed. But I think that it certainly is, the future is still a digital world. And whether it's going to be vinyl or it's going to be a digital file or streamed, there's, as I mentioned earlier, we have digital processes for just about everything in every one of our products. And a digital process in a turntable is actually, adding to the quality of your experience, so the performance of that turntable is being governed by an incredibly advanced digital system, where normally that would, very limited versions of that were applied in earlier designs. So it keeps improving. I mean, I think that the technology is probably, enjoyment of a vinyl record is probably, aside from a few things, a few horizons that haven't been licked yet, like zenith adjustments, that has a lot to do with the cartridge and stylus and mounting of the stylus and the cantilever, and things like eccentricity, and just the quality of the vinyl pressings, can be, those are the only things that seem to still be on the horizon to fix. But, I think the quality of records can be extremely good. We listened to an old RCA Dynaflex disc the other day, a mono recording of Heifetz, Jascha Heifetz playing, and we just played it in the background or sitting around having coffee, and just totally surprised how incredible, this record sounded. The mono record, playing it with this is at a friend's house. It's got it wasn't even a Techniques turntable, to be honest with you, but we just enjoyed it so much. That record just sounded so great. We couldn't believe it. It's like we just enjoyed every moment. So I think that the technology on vinyl is there. You just have to kind of, it was the system of delivering the lowest cost product to the widest audience. And let's face it, it can be, incredible quality. It can be not so incredible quality. You put on a record, if you're auditioning a turntable to try to see if you're getting into vinyl, I highly recommend listening to a handful of records and try to see what you're really capable of, because some records some records don't sound very good. Other records sound incredible, and you might not have had to spend a lot of money for them. So you can't just use one record because it's your favorite song and say, yeah, I love that, or I don't love that because I thought the digital version sounded better. I really encourage people to get a wide appreciation of what their turntable can do, and that's when they'll see why Techniques is so good at what we're doing. And I guess going back to the original topic there, people are starting to collect cassette tapes again.
I know.
And companies have been reborn to make reel-to-reel machines. So there's always a following. I don't know if we'll see. There's a DCC museum out in California that has all the DCC equipment that was built by Panasonic, Techniques, and Philips, and God knows who else. So, there's following for everything, but I'm sure that vinyl is one of the most foremost and is one of the most appreciated by the purists and the folks that really know when they tailor their machines to there's so many different ways you can configure, there's different tone arm geometries. There's, you can change tone arms, you can change cartridges, there's moving coil cartridges. You can get into phono preamplifiers, you can get into step-up transformers for moving coils, and everyone's talking about about their experiences with these things, and it's just an incredible pastime. If you want to be involved with it, you can dig in and just dip your toe in if you want, or you can really get involved. And I think that's what's so great about vinyl. Digital is a little simpler, and it's a stream or it's a disc, and it has a lot to do with your digital audio process, or in our case, our digital amplifier process. And it's a bit simpler, and there's less deviation, less different ways you can go. Most of it's going to be done in the digital world, where in the analog side of things and records, there's a lot of things that can change and improve the sound, and some you may like, some you may not, and it's just a pastime, and I think we're all enjoying that, and the flexibility that turntables have.
It's definitely a fun hobby, and it definitely gives you, for those that just want kind of that tactile experience, it gives them that, and for those that want to kind of dig in really deep and kind of tweak and adjust and do all that, they also have a lot of potential there.
So yeah, one of the greatest things, Jorden, I think, is that why people can appreciate vinyl to its ultimate capability versus all these streaming services and the CD. Even if you had a digital file on a CD, you really don't know what master tape it was made from. These streaming files, we don't know what file they were made from and things like that. But when you have an original copy piece of the vinyl, let's say Led Zeppelin 1, and you were willing to search it out and find one for sale and pay whatever price it is. I'm sure it would be $1,000 or something. But if you could get that and listen to it, you would really be hearing the very best version that had been intended by the musicians, by the record label, and you'd have a pressing of a vinyl record that was made probably within 6 months of the master tape, so it's as close as what was originally intended. Like I say, we never know what we're listening to with streaming services, and we hope it's that original. A lot of vinyl is pressed and stated that it's using the original master tapes and so on. But remember, those tapes are old, man. They're really old. So when you get an original vinyl pressing, you'll know what it's supposed to sound like anyway. And some people are really willing to go through those efforts. And a lot of times you don't have to pay, a lot of money. I mean, that was Led Zeppelin was one example, but there's a lot of music out there that you can get original pressings of and just really enjoy. And
so in wrapping this up, if I were to ask you, and I ask this to every guest that kind of comes on, but I'm gonna tweak the question a little bit for you. So if there was one song or album that you could choose to listen to or to recommend to people, what would it be? And then the kind of tweak for you would be, would you choose to live with vinyl or digital or cassette or another format if you had to pick just one?
Yeah, that's a broad question, but I'd say I'd have to maybe think about, as I'm getting older, we're kind of, lightening our load as we get close to retirement, get a smaller house, get maybe a smaller car, smaller digs, and just try to, just lighten the load of everything, whether it's finances or whatnot. But space has a lot to do with it. So I think vinyl could be a consideration, but I would never part with my vinyl collection. I couldn't just pick one, but if I was secluded in prison, say, and I had access to a streaming service, well, that would kind of solve a lot of the problems. Put a $5,000 pair of headphones on and listen, on a deserted island or something. Well, it depends on your what you can do, but I am going to try to consolidate my vinyl, and I don't want to part with any of my collection. I mean, I've got thousands of DVDs and Blu-rays as well. So I've been, in this hobby in every aspect of the industry for so long that you can't help but collect all this stuff. So I hope I never have to part with any of it, but I couldn't really live with one. I just love the flexibility. And again, picking one track for someone to listen to is really, that's a tough ask. I don't know.
What if you have something that you could recommend that you're like, I'm listening to this right now and I just really dig it and I think people should listen?
Well, I'll reflect back to that. I mentioned earlier that I discovered a record, and it was suggested to Chad Chasm of it's Acoustic Sounds or Classic Records. I'm not sure which of the companies, and it's Tennessee Ernie Ford, and it's country blues. I forget the name of the title right now. I don't have it in front of me, but and I bought the record as a mono record, at a library book sale, and it was like $2, and I always liked his voice, and this is like early '60s, and I listened to this record, and it reminded me of Muddy Waters, the folk singer. Very simple recording, bass and guitar and vocals. It's like a small trio, and it sounded so good to me. I said, this record is amazing. I looked for it, and I found it in stereo, and I enjoyed it. Just great recording, and on Capitol Records, it was just a great recording at the time, and I never heard anyone talk about it. And I mentioned it to Chad. We were out at Rocky Mountain one year, and he said, let me check it out. And he got back to me like 3 months later. He says, Bill, I checked the vaults. We got the tape from the vaults. He says, it's gold, man. It's gold. And he later pressed it. And, it's not a very expensive. It's not one of those $55 records, but it's like a mid-price, $40 record, but it's all remastered. And I have to tell you that the master tape must have been in incredible shape, because you listen to that now, and that his redone vinyl, and it's just incredible sound quality. So and if you don't know who Tennessee Ernie Ford is, just got that incredible deep voice. He was out at the time with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and all those guys, but he was unique, more on the country side of things. But this is a country blues album, and it's just really incredible record. Whether you find the original mono version or the stereo version or Chad's version, just enjoy it. And truthfully, since he remastered it, whatever was streaming got improved too. So if you stream it, it sounds great streamed too. So
there we go.
Fun, And I if I had to play one record to impress people with the sound of a stereo, I think a vocal record really does it. A lot of people love piano, a lot of people love violin, but they're kind of specialty appreciation, where when you hear the human voice, it's very easy to equate for most people. So,
I love it. So 16-ton Tennessee Ernie Ford.
That's the guy. Yeah, you remember that? That's the song that made him famous. That's not on that record, but 16 tons, yeah.
There you go. Love it. Bill, thank you so much for coming on. I greatly appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to see what Techniques has to show in the coming months.
It's my great pleasure, Jorden. Thanks for asking me along, and hope to do it again with you someday.
All the best.
Take care.